Welcome back to The Book Stop. I'm so excited to talk about today's episode. Fair warning moving forward, this podcast does contain spoilers as we go over major events within the novels. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on Apple, Spotify, and Instagram at The Book Stop Podcast. And we're back with another episode of The Book Stop, and I'm super excited. Took a little break and I'm ready to get back into it. And today I have a special guest, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. What book did you bring for us to talk about?
From H.P. Lovecraft, The Nameless City, The Festival, and Under the Pyramids.
Awesome. And why did you bring these books for us to talk about?
The Nameless City was one of the first stories I ever read by him, and I always really liked it. I loved how it's just this one unnamed protagonist in this ancient city in the middle of the desert. Yeah, I just like that it's just the one character, and yeah, it just always stood out to me as a cool one.
Yeah.
The Festival, I always kind of like it because it was like a short and sweet, how Lovecraft's stories usually go, where, you know, it's just like some creepy, ominous, slow build, and then they just go deeper underground and things get weirder and weirder as they go.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, the character ends up kind of going crazy, which is also a very common recurring theme in his stories. Under the Pyramids, kind of cool. I mainly picked it just because it was similar to the Nameless City, because it's just like old pyramids in ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because the main protagonist of the story, actually, he collaborated with Harry Houdini when he did it.
Yeah, which I found very, very interesting. So a little bit about the author. So H.P. Lovecraft, which his real name is Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Yeah, he had a large collection. I want to say about 100 other stories at least?
Maybe. Yeah, there was a lot.
Yeah, some unpublished, some that he published, and they have an entire collection that you can purchase. He's also the creator of the Cthulhu mythos, so which we got to see a little bit of him, which was kind of cool. So we're gonna hop into our first story here. We're gonna talk about the Nameless City first. Before we get into it, though, we're gonna play a little game. So you are going to summarize the Nameless City using 10 words or less.
10 words. Okay. Nameless protagonist finds an ancient city in the middle of desert.
All right, good job. Close enough. I mean, that honestly sums it up. It really does. These stories are pretty short. They're, no more than a couple pages, some of them, and some of them at most maybe 10, 15 pages. They're very short, but they do really pack a lot within them. So I'm going to summarize it really quick before we get started. So, The Nameless City is the first story set in the Cthulhu world. The protagonist travels into the middle of the Arabian desert to explore an ancient underground city. The deeper he goes, the more secret he unravels. Let's first start, I guess, with our favorite quotes.
Yeah, so my favorite quote is, "That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die." The quote is usually associated with the Call of Cthulhu, in the story, but it was actually first mentioned in this one, The Nameless City.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time they even mention Abdul El-Hazred, the mad author of the Necronomicon.
Yeah, they mention him in a few of his stories.
Mm-hmm.
I like that he's kind of a drawback. Like, they always bring him up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the first time he's ever mentioned in the mythos.
Yeah.
Or I think it's the first time he's credited as the author of the Necronomicon. Mm-hmm. It's one of those.
I think that one's in the festival where they mention that he's the creator of it. So, yeah. The quote I brought is, "Night had now approached, yet the tangible things I had seen made curiosity stronger than fear, so that I did not flee from the long, moon-cast shadows that daunted me when I first saw the Nameless City." So I like this one because it shows that the protagonist is so driven for the knowledge of what's going on down there that his knowledge is like overdrafting his fear. And it really draws me into that saying where it's like curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back.
Or the curiosity almost gets the cat trapped underground with an ancient race of ghost crocodile seals.
Exactly. I really like that one. I think that one really draws this whole story together, how the protagonist will constantly be like, I'm too scared to do this, I can't do this, but the more he kind of dive into the secrets, they're like, no, I want to know more.
Yeah, that feeling of just getting, immersed in something that like fascinates you and losing track of time. Yeah, that obsessive feeling of when you really dive into that rabbit hole and almost don't make it out.
Yeah, and he literally did that. So, yeah, let's just jump into it. Some things that I liked, I'll say, is I really like the mixture of keeping history realistic, I guess. I'm glad that he went with a more realistic approach. It made the connection to these stories a lot stronger for me.
Yeah, that's one of the things he did a lot when I was writing. He would take real things, real historical events or whatever, and he would mix it in with his own made-up stuff. It would kind of make it feel more real,
Yeah. I guess to like kind of draw into Lovecraft himself, because I found that his writing style is very interesting, I'll say. I felt like when I was reading it that he drew a lot of like significance to like random words. He would italicize certain words that makes you like kind of think twice about what he's saying.
Almost a little pretentious in a lot of it.
Yeah, I could feel that too, definitely. Sometimes he was maybe enunciating things a little too much, but in the first story, I think that he did it enough where I was like, okay, what is he actually trying to say here? I also like that he was very descriptive in his like landscaping, specifically. I really like his descriptions of Egypt in the desert and the underground areas. I wish there was a little bit more description in the horror aspect. I definitely felt like when he was going down into the deep, that there was like that build of suspense, but I wish there was a little bit more when he actually saw, because he sees like the creatures at the very, very end, correct?
Yeah, he gets a glimpse of them. I think there were supposed to actually be like ghosts of the old beings that lived there or something weird like that.
Okay.
But Lovecraft does that a lot in his stories. He's like obsessed with architecture. He always goes off on really long tangents and gets really descriptive about it. Like if you ever read like The Mountains of Madness, there is so much just describing all the architecture in it. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm definitely a type of person that likes details within the areas around me. I like being able to feel like I'm there. And with this one specifically, I could definitely feel like I was part of it. So I went out of the box a little bit for my favorite character. I said that my favorite character was actually the Moon. And the Moon is actually my favorite character in all three of the stories. He mentions it so much throughout all of the stories. It highlights a lot of the creepiness, because I feel like a lot of stuff are creepy happen at night, and he enunciates it throughout all of the stories, and it really stands out with the way that he kind of portrays the Moon, kind of highlighting the creepiness within the stories. So yeah, that's why I picked my favorite character as the Moon.
I like that, yeah. Yeah, the Moon, if I remember right, so he has this whole mythos of this Dreamlands thing he came up with. It's just like this weird alternate Earth or like plane of existence, whatever you want to call it. It's just this whole crazy realm he came up with, and the Moon was actually an important part in that. I forget what it was though. They talk about it in the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. There's like some crazy beings on the Moon that try to eat the main protagonist or something. I'm not sure. He gets saved. Ooh. He gets saved by a bunch of cats too.
Oh shoot! I have to read this one then. What was that again? I want to write it down.
It's called the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath.
Oh my gosh.
It's really different. His Dreamland stuff it's not as horror based. It actually, okay. I mean, there's a lot of horror elements to it and a lot of references to like the gods and stuff that's in his mythos. But that one feels more like a fantasy adventure quest than it does a horror story.
Yeah, I didn't know that he kind of branched out away from that. I knew he had like, he's considered a master of horror, so I didn't know that he kind of like branched out and did some other stuff. So that's pretty cool.
Inspired by him, so you'll hear a lot of writers should talk about him.
He definitely influences a lot of other generations, especially like nowadays, forming into other horror films or books. You can definitely feel his influence within those stories as well.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the creatures a little bit.
Oh, wait, I have a favorite character. I figured it out.
Okay, go ahead and say your favorite character.
The camel. He knew what was up.
Yeah, you know what? That camel was like, this is not the direction I want to go in, so I'm gonna leave. Yeah, the camel knew it was up, and he was like, I gotta go. So I want to talk about what is the Nameless City. So the protagonist, he doesn't have a name, are crawling down, and on the walls, it feels very like Egyptian, where they have almost like hieroglyphics on the wall, but they have these creatures, and it's a cross between like a crocodile and a seal with protruding with their foreheads. They had horns, they didn't have a nose, and they had an alligator jaw, which is very hard for me to visualize. I'm not gonna lie. No idea how to visualize that.
Might be able to like Google some artist's rendition of it or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he's like that with a lot of weird freaking creatures that are like chimeras or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to do something different. It's not like the same thing over and over again. I like the different varieties of it, so. But I wish there was a little bit more kind of drawing out. I wish we would have seen a little bit more. I know that his story that he made of this was based off of like a dream. So I don't know if I can't remember if the story ends in a dream. Was that this one or was that the other one?
Might be the festival. He does manage to escape, and I just think he just leaves.
Okay. Honestly, good for him. So for this one, I said my favorite relationship was definitely the moon in the Nameless City. Like I said earlier, I think it highlights the creepiness of it, and the paintings within the Nameless City that the protagonist finds are all described to be under a moonlit night. So I think that a lot of significance happened during the night. So
yeah, I
think the moon really is key player in a lot of these stories.
Yeah, for sure.
And then who would you say your favorite relationship is?
The Nameless City and the Nameless Protagonist. I just like that it's just him in the city, and he gets really immersed in it, and I like that feeling of getting super immersed in something that fascinates you. Just losing track of time to it, inspiring your imagination.
Yeah, absolutely.
What those beings were like. Just that obsessive feeling of, really diving into the rabbit hole and almost not making it out. The ADHD hyper-focus thing, I can really relate to it.
Yeah, I honestly like the shortness of it. You come in, you find out what's going on, you get to the point where they're like, okay, this is what happens, they find out what's going on, and then boom, it just leaves.
Yeah, that's why I like short stories a lot, because I just don't have the attention span to finish books ever.
Yeah. And then, speaking of short stories, we're going to head over to the festival, which is the shortest of the 3 stories that we picked. We're going to play that little game again. So you're going to summarize the festival, but you're only going to have 7 words this time.
7 words. Let's see. Unnamed, protagonist, visits relatives, go deep underground. Underground's 1 word, right?
I think so, yeah. All right, perfect. Yeah. Again, we have another unnamed main character. So I'm going to summarize it really quick. The nameless main character visits Keensports, New England to celebrate Yuletide. They feel their forefathers and ancestors have been somehow calling them to this. But when they arrive, they find it isn't what they expect it to be. So yeah, this one was something else. This story kind of, I don't know, it was interesting. I'll say that. One thing that I really did like about this story was that there was no dialogue in the entire thing. The Nameless City didn't have any dialogue, but there was only one character. In the festival, there's multiple different characters, and no one spoke to each other, which was very creepy. That definitely brought some triggers to my mind. I was like, okay, why is no one speaking to each other? And I feel like that kind of ties in with how the Nameless character described the man that answered the door to be a wax figure, and that he was very like waxy, and like his face, it felt like he was wearing like a mask. Like having no dialogue kind of ties in with that, where he feels kind of like a wax figure.
Yeah, later in the story, when he sees that the figure he's following is wearing his great however many grandparents' watch or whatever, it's implying that that's like secretly his ancestor, right, and that he's related to this person. But then the mask falls off, and he sees something horrifying, and I guess probably gets into his mind that whatever that thing is part of him as well.
Yeah. So for the festival, did you have a favorite quote?
I like the line, I shivered that a town should be so aged and maggoty with subterranean evil. Just because I like seeing him use the word maggoty. Writing is always so pretentious sounding, and then he's just saying maggoty.
Is that even a word?
I think so, but it's just still so, like, not as pretentious as the rest of the things he says are in the story.
Yeah, he does use a lot of very big words. So it was nice to see him kind of stray for that for a second. Yeah, so the one I picked was great holes secretly are ridged where Earth's pores ought to suffice, and things that learn to walk that ought to crawl.
Yeah.
Which is creepy, to say the least. And especially that last line, because it makes you, like, think of nowadays, and, like, we don't really know what's going on anywhere on the Earth. Like, in the ocean, for example, no idea. Under the surface, no idea. What's going on in the core of the Earth? So, it makes you think of, like, what's really down there. And the deeper that he goes in the story, what's really down there? Like, what's hiding? Like, why are these cloaked figures, like, going down in this deep, dark area? So...
freaks out before you even get there.
Yeah, it just jumps into the river and then shows up the next day somewhere else. Yeah. Like, what?
I love that's another thing I liked about the story. It doesn't even like really show you the craziest thing in the end. You'd even get to the craziest stuff before he gets too crazy and leaves.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I like this one because it's very short. It almost feels like hypnotic. It like makes you like tug on the mystery. It makes you kind of make up your own story, like what's down there. So
yeah, it's like super short, but one of my favorite things is that the Necronomicon itself was just chilling in a pile of books in the house.
Oh
like
my God, I know.
This crazy, right. Powerful grimoire describing ancient gods and aliens and spells and such. It's just chilling there.
Yeah, it's like a magazine sitting on the cover. He's like, hey, do you want to take a little read real quick while I go upstairs and change?
Yep.
And the lady's just staying there. Isn't she like, she's making something in the next room, and he's just like, guess I'll just chill here and wait.
Just chill here, read the Necronomicon. Like how later the book's kept at Miskatonic University in Arkham, but I guess part of this story is it's quite possibly taking place in the past.
Yeah, okay.
Since he says it's a dream and shit, he may have even just traveled through his dreams to the past. So there's like I said, like the dreamlands and stuff. There is a lot of elements of dream travel and just kind of stories.
I'm personally not a huge fan of dream sequences, like being able to end a story in a dream or start a story in a dream. I feel like it's kind of a cheap cop-out, but in this one, it honestly makes sense, because it just adds to the creepy again. It makes it like, well, did this actually happen, or was this kind of like he was reading a story and it kind of influenced the dream, so
then Lovecraft goes and makes dreams like this whole other world you travel to.
Yeah. Is
it real or not? Was it a dream, or did they actually go to the dreamlands, or whatever?
Yeah. I wanted to bring back up the author himself. So Lovecraft, I don't know how much you know about him, but he actually had a very tragic upbringing. And with that, it really influenced a lot of his writing when he was like in his early 20s. I think that might be why he does a lot of his stories in like first person, to kind of put himself into those scenarios. And it kind of puts like the reader into those scenarios as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know he lived with his mom for his life. For a long time earlier. I think he lived with like one wife or something in New York for a little bit of time, but I guess he hated being in New York because he's kind of a xenophobic asshole. But the stories, I don't know, stories have always kind of really inspired my imagination, and I've always liked that it's all really, he made it all public domain so that a lot of people can carry on the work after he's gone and everything, because he kind of died young. He died of
40s.
Intestinal cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was super reclusive. Something I can relate to. Definitely an introvert. He just spent a lot of time in his head, so he just had all these stories.
He's a huge influence for horror, so I think that he had an awful upbringing, but he was able to kind of spin it in a way where it kind of helped, I guess. He's able to make these stories that inspire other people, and it makes a big difference within our time now. So
it does help. Yeah, it's writing is a wonderful thing for people who are often trapped in their heads.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great outlet. Did you have a favorite character or relationship for this one?
I guess the horrifying creatures that they flew on.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about them.
I know what those were.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, man, I need one of those.
Yeah, they're probably actually a creature from the mythos or something. I haven't really looked, because he does reuse a lot of creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the festival. It was a very short story. Kind of ends off with not really much to show in the end, but you kind of have to twist your own imagination and kind of figure out what's going on.
Yeah, that was another thing. He, in a lot of his stories, it's usually he tries to leave a lot to the imagination.
Yes.
And I mean, Yeah, that's probably one of the things another thing I like a lot about it, because if I had to name a greatest fear, I would probably say it's my own imagination.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
So yeah, the last story that we are going to talk about is called Under the Pyramids, aka a lot of people might know it as Imprisoned with the Pharaohs or Entombed with the Pharaohs.
Yeah.
It has multiple different names with it, but Under the Pyramids is the one that I read within the story. That was the title that they chose in that big old collection book that I had. So yeah, so we're going to do that game one last time. You've had 2 times to practice, so now we're going to go to the hardest level. You have to summarize this story in 5 words or less.
Harry Houdini's crazy trip to Egypt.
Okay.
I said to Egypt fast enough. It's one word.
Oh, okay. We'll hyphenate it.
How would I say HH stands for Harry Houdini? HH
There
is
you
crazy
go.
trip to Egypt.
There you go. There, perfect. Yeah, crazy trip is definitely one way to describe this experience, but I'm going to summarize it really quick. So, Under the Pyramids is told by the narrative of Harry Houdini. It is a narrative that tells a fictionalized story of a true experience of escape artist Harry Houdini. Set in 1910 in Egypt, Houdini finds himself kidnapped by his tour guide and thrown down a deep, endless hole near the Great Sphinx. While attempting to escape, he stumbles upon a gigantic 5-headed monster and a real-life deity. Okay, hold on a second. So the very first thing I want to talk about, because this is something that when I read it, I couldn't stop laughing about, was when they had that, fight, and then they had to decide that, okay, I guess the only real way we can settle this is if we have a boxing match on top of the pyramid.
Yeah, I don't know. What the hell?
I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, if I lived in Egypt, this is what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you settle disputes.
It was so funny. I was like, are you kidding me right now? I guess that's one way to drive your plot and to get him to get on top of that pyramid. So this is a story about Harry Houdini that Lovecraft ghost wrote for, and he wrote this way back when, and he got paid like $100 to write it, which back then was a lot of money.
Yeah, for a short story too.
For a short story, that was a lot. And I like this one too. I thought this was a good story. I felt like out of all of them, this one was the most terrifying one, I guess. The one that really got me like, okay, I'm nervous. Like, what's gonna happen? I need to know now.
Yeah, so allegedly true, the Harry Houdini claims. But I think he did admit that it was probably like a hallucination or a dream or something. Yeah, he gets lured to do a freaking boxing match at a pyramid. And he gets bound and gagged and thrown in a hole. And I guess I like that at first when he sees what you think is the horrible creature. It actually just turns out to be like the paw of the creature.
Yeah.
Or as he keeps describing, like the crushing hand of Egypt or whatever and pulling him in. But yeah, it's actually just the paw of the whole godlike being that the Sphinx is based off of.
Yeah, I wish we saw a little bit more, because like he sees it, he gets terrified, and then he tries to leave. But I wish we would have saw more of the significance of the character. Like, is this monster? This was based off the Sphinx. This isn't based off the Cthulhu character, correct?
No, it's supposed to be what the Sphinx was based off of. I think he was trying to imply, the Sphinx was based off some crazy outer god, ancient alien deity or something.
I found one interesting thing that when I was reading, I found it very iconic that, back in the day, way back when we used to worship like animal gods, it was completely normal to have a person with a dog head seen as yeah, exactly. That is seen as being like, you worship that, you respect that. And nowadays it's like, if you were to see somebody walking around with a dog head, you would absolutely lose it. So we kind of worship more, I guess, respect more human-like characters than really these like animals sort of types. It kind of ties in with, okay, back then we used to respect it, but now we fear that. If somebody back then would have saw this humongous creature, they would have been like bowing down to like, oh my gosh, like king, like
run screaming,
terrified that it was going to eat him or something.
Nope.
So
walk away.
Walk away. So, did you bring a favorite quote from this one?
Yeah, pretty simple one. I did mainly because I just liked what it was kind of implying. The knowledge of what those unnatural length of ropes implied. I just like that the rope just kept falling and falling, and it just implies how deep underground they are. And I also thought it was kind of funny because it's Houdini, and he almost gets crushed to death by a ton of rope. He's the famous escape artist, so I don't know. Rope getting escape artist getting crushed by rope. Just there's a joke there.
Yeah, and it really added. My first question, I guess, would be like, how did they get so much rope? Because it was a lot of rope, and how did they get it on top of the pyramid? Because that's got to be heavy. So, I guess my question is like, why and how did they formulate this plan? They were like, you know what, Harry Houdini coming to town. Let's put him in the bottom of the pyramid. Let's go.
He likes playing with rope. Let's give him enough rope to play with.
He'll be busy for a while. So I also noticed like the significance about the rope, and I really like that. So my favorite quote was, Egypt, he reminded me, is very old and full of inner mysteries and antique powers not even conceivable by the experts of today. It kind of ties in with like what we said earlier, is like we don't really know anything. We've done research, but we've never really dove into like these deep dark areas. So coming from the tour guide, I felt like was very sus at the very beginning of the story. That was my first like red flag from this guy. The second one was the boxing match on top of the pyramids. But I like the other ones, it held a lot of history within the story. I like the callbacks of the buildings, architecture, the history within Egypt, the callback of that.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny how Lovecraft thought that the story was complete bunk too. Like he straight up went to the owner of Weird Tales, like the horror magazine he usually wrote for, and he straight up was asked whether he could take some artistic liberties, which he was allowed to do. I'm pretty sure that's mostly the whole part in the end where he actually goes back and revisits it.
Yeah.
So with this one, I kind of like a lot about the behind the scenes of the story. I thought there was a lot of interesting history to why it was even made. I guess they wanted to use a story with Harry Houdini in it because Weird Tales wasn't doing so good. So they wanted to do something that was going to bring a lot of publicity. So that's why they kind of went all in with Lovecraft's story and brought in a big name celebrity like Houdini.
Yeah, that makes sense. If it was any other like random character, it definitely wouldn't have gotten much traction as it did with like Harry Houdini. Because imagine if the story that they tell people is real, it's just a little fictionalized, and you would have heard like a person today, I would have been like, well, I'm reading it. So it makes complete sense to me. Alright, so I have a little trivia game here for you. Lovecraft has a lot of different stories, so I have some titles of other stories that he has. Some of them are real, some of them I just made up. So you're just going to tell me if this is Lovecraft or if this is not Lovecraft.
Okay.
So the first one we have is The Dreams in the Witch House.
That's true.
Yes. The Far, Far Beyond.
Oh man, I know there's multiple stories you said beyond in the title, but I'm going to say not.
Yep, that one is not. I added another far.
Tricksy hobbits.
Next we have The Tree.
I'm going to say no.
Ooh, that one is one of his.
Really?
Yeah. Next we have Winged Death.
No.
It is one of his.
Death, huh?
Yeah. Little Bugs.
No way.
No. That was that one, no. He.
I'm going to say no.
It is one of his.
I suck at this game.
It's okay. The Big Blue Ocean.
No.
No. He does have one in there that is called The Ocean, but I think it's just called The Ocean. So. Okay. The Terrifying Old Man.
No.
No. The Lingering Fear.
Yes.
No. I think it's called The Something Fear. At the Mountain of Madness.
Oh yeah, that's definitely real.
Yeah.
Okay, it's one of the big ones.
The Rats in the Wall.
Yep, that's another. Oh god, that's one. I don't like talking about that
one. I have no idea what happened in that one, but
I don't like it because, well, the name of the cat.
Oh, gotcha. 2 Black Cadillacs.
Were Cadillacs even real when he was a thing when he was alive?
I don't know, but it's a Carrie Underwood song. So, what else we got? The Moon Bog.
Yes.
Yep, that is one of them. Okay, we got 2 more left. We got 2 empty bottles.
Not real.
Correct. And then the last one we have is deaf, dumb, and blind.
Not real.
Nope, that one is real. I think you did well. I don't know what your score is.
Terrible.
I think you got half of them. For sure. You for sure got half of them. So, but yeah, that I loved making that little game. Some of these stories could be interesting.
Oh yeah.
That one's very interesting. Just straight up I want to know the story behind that one.
Were those all published ones by him, or just like writings and just anything he wrote?
These were all something that were in the book, so these were all published, yeah. Especially the Far, Far Beyond one. That one is definitely one of his, and not something that I referenced from Shrek.
Far, Far Beyond. I know he has one called Beyond the Wall of Sleep, and then I thought there was one just straight up called The Beyond.
It is just The Beyond, yeah. I added Far, Far Away, because I wanted, Far, Far, because I wanted to reference Shrek.
Oh, okay. I get you.
All right, so within these stories, is there anything that you would have done differently? Anything that you personally would have changed? What I said is that I wish that there was a little bit more action with the monsters. I wish there was more of that driving force of the terror that the characters felt. I wish we could have saw a little bit more of the aftermath of that. And then I also wish that I felt like they kept getting into these situations and then they would hop right out of them. It felt very quick, and I guess it makes sense because these are short stories, so they kind of have to be. But I feel like there was a lot of build-up and then not a lot of closure at the end.
Some of his stories, they get a bit longer, more into depth and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's something that I noticed when I was reading it, some stuff I would change. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
Well, I mean, the main thing I can say at the top of my head is, I mean, obviously more diversity in the characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, all his protagonists were, white guys.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a whole lot of changes I'd really want to make. Yeah, maybe finding out what would have happened had the character in the festival gone all the way to the end. That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit more closure in that story for sure. I would have liked to see that. But yeah, so we're coming to an end here, so we will do the rating scale. So if you listen to other podcasts, we're going to kind of do it the same way. We're just going to make something up and...
Oh, you know we should rate it with?
What's that?
Tentacles up or tentacles down. Like thumbs up, thumbs down. But
okay.
A lot of his monsters are famous for having like squid-like tentacles and shit.
Okay, yeah, we could definitely do that. So I think using the tentacle method that we're discussing, I would give the Nameless City a tentacle up for sure. I think that it had good potential, and I think it delivered what it needed to in the first story of this world. A little like you don't know what's gonna happen, you get a little glimpse, so I'm gonna get a tentacle up.
How many tentacles?
Oh shoot, I don't know. I'll give it 5 tentacles out of 8.
Okay.
Raised for the Nameless City.
All right, the Nameless City. Yeah, I liked. Out of all 3 of them, that was my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it was the first, still one of my top fave Lovecraft stories. I'd probably give it like 6 out of 8, 6.5 out of 8.
Okay, so 6.5 out of 8. So one tentacle is just kind of like slow, like a smaller tentacle is coming up. And
yeah.
Being like, yeah, I'm here too. Okay. Festival, I would say probably about a 2 or 3. Didn't like that one as much. I didn't like the ending very much, so that one I would definitely say about a 2 or 3 tentacle to raise right there.
Yeah, the festival. I mean, I like it. It could be a bit longer. I definitely would like to find out what happened. What's at the end of their journey?
Yes.
Yeah, 4 tentacles up.
Yeah, awesome. And then our last one we got is the pyramids. I think I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 8, honestly. I really like the story. I think that it's the more thrilling of them all. I like at the end where you actually get to see something and it's alive and it's moving and it's huge, and I like that we get to see it. It lost a point though because we didn't actually get to see the boxing match on top of the pyramids, so I'm taking a tentacle down for that one.
Ah, damn it. Yeah, I'd probably only put it like one above the festival for myself. Like, I like it. It does feel different in a lot of ways because it's weird kind of seeing a celebrity in his stories.
That's true, yeah.
I'd probably give it like a 6 tentacles up.
All right, well, we are drawing to a close here, so I just want to thank you for coming on the book stop. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. This is the first like spooky, I guess, series that we're doing here. We're doing like a whole Halloween special, and I haven't read like a quote unquote scary thriller book like this in a long time. So thanks for suggesting this.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. If you ever want to do one on the Necronomicon, that'd be pretty cool, I think.
Oh shoot, yeah. Maybe that'll be when you come on next, because I don't think we have anything planned. So if you guys want Andrew back on next year, let me know. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Goodbye. And happy Halloween.
Thank you for turning the pages with us this week. If you've enjoyed this episode, show your support on social media. Don't forget to turn on your notifications to get a reminder of the next episode. Thanks again for listening to The Book Stop. Bye!